spice of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Yeah, I think number one, we took some shots early. We hit on some of them, hit at them, missed JJ by a fingernail, and probably had some more opportunities to do so, but we didn't hit them. And then you get to Dallas. They did a good job, playing some shell coverage and taking some things away. But there's always more opportunities to push the ball down the field, and with our great skill group, always got to be more cognizant of doing so.
Oh man! All right, I'm gonna need the Judd Zulgad coach speak translator there. Could you please translate what Clint Kubiak? What was he really saying? What was he trying to say there?
That was clearly the occasional SOS. Get me out of here.
Blink 3 times if Mike's making you
Clint,
check down.
Clint, are you okay? Clint, you've got to tell me. Here's the code word. Here's the code word. Go deep. Deep shot. That's the code word. Say deep shot and we'll come get you.
If Mike's holding you captive and making you throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage schematically.
Down 5 times in the first quarter on Sunday, and we'll know and we'll come rescue you.
Oh my gosh. This is a Feedback Friday here on Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment. And Feedback Friday, by the way, we'll get to Judd's keys to a Vikings win over the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Keys has his work cut out after that performance last week against the Cowboys. No Danielle Hunter.
Yep.
It's going to be tough. But every Friday we take your comments, your criticisms, your questions, your theories, whatever you want. You can send them in. The best way to send messages in that we can read on the Feedback Friday show is through the SKOR North app. There's a feedback tab at the bottom. So check it out. It's the central hub for everything we do on SKOR North. Judd's written work is there. And let's start with this one. This one actually came in through the YouTube comment section. You can click on the subscribe button on both the SKOR North and the Purple Daily YouTube accounts. And you can see our ugly faces that were made for radio, but we've forced them onto the visual platforms here.
I don't know about these two, but
you've got kind of like a 90s retro throwback look happening right now.
Thank you. Yeah, it was supposed to be laundry day yesterday. I took a long nap, and then, when you wake up way too groggy and you're like, there's just zero chance I'm going to accomplish anything else, and I just ended up watching HBO programming for 3 hours, and I was like, oh, now it's bedtime. So then that was my Thursday. That was
there
my
he is.
Thursday.
So now he's got his little 90s windbreaker.
I'm thinking sort of Priestley, like 90210.
Jason Priestley,
Jason Priestley a little
yeah.
bit. I'm thinking like Brando, Hey, Brandon, what's going on? Yeah, that's a good one.
Could see that, yeah. This one's from Bron Solo via the YouTube comment section. The sky is falling, at least to Vikings fans, he says. The Vikings have been in every game, you guys. They haven't been blown out. The Cowboys look extremely legit. Calm down, everyone. The Vikings can still finish 13-4. I'm glad I'm not anyone on this show's employee or significant other talking about the way that we are overreacting. So what are your thoughts to Bron Solo saying, calm down, the Vikings have played a bunch of close games, you guys are overreacting?
Number one, I don't care if they're close. That's not the point. The majority of the games in this league are close. The Jets scored 30 points and got absolutely waxed. I mean, it should have been 45 rip. You almost lost to Detroit at home. You were playing the Carolina Panthers, who aren't good, on the road, had a comfortable lead, almost blew that. You had a cornerback juggle a ball and hand it to a receiver against the Cowboys and completely came unglued. We can call it close, but your kicker missed a field goal that would have won a game, a big game against the Cardinals. So no, that is the huge, the glass is half full. You don't get it. They're playing close games. I don't care. And by the way, the No Excuses tour of 2021, by the way, was built. The tour was built and is touring on the premise of they're playing close games. Doesn't mean a damn thing.
Yeah.
Are they winning those close games? And by the way, if they also, again, are playing close games, are they close because they're playing good teams in their close games? Or are they close games because they're blowing them? The Detroit game's a huge red flag, guys. It is a huge red flag. At home, comfortable lead. That's a game that you should just wrap up and go home.
Yeah.
and you almost blew it. So I know I'm not buying this. It's fine. Why would you? Why at this point would you think it's fine? There was a lot expected from this team, and they aren't delivering.
Well, I think you need to define what do you want out of this team. And I think if you want them to play a bunch of close games and lose to the winning teams and narrowly beat the losing teams like the Lions and the Panthers, I mean, if you want to celebrate close losses to good teams, by the way, close losses to good teams on a backup quarterback that's never started before as well. Like, if you want to celebrate that and put up some banners, oh man, the Vikings almost beat the Cardinals. They almost beat the Cowboys. Oh, those teams are going to be playoff teams. Look, the Vikings, these aren't terrible. Like, if we're going to just celebrate the fact that they're playing close games, if that's your expectation, then throw a parade because, wow, the Vikings are probably one of the only teams that hasn't been blown out in some fashion, right, in 2021 so far. So, like, congratulations, I guess. They haven't been blown out. Is it too short notice for us here in a couple weeks to plan some sort of halftime ceremony for them? Hey, you guys played close games against playoff teams. Congratulations. Like, I don't know. And by the way, like, to say the Vikings can still finish 13-4, what, like, dude, my man.
I think you
come on now.
The wrong podcast.
Come on now. Nathan M. via the SKOR North app says, why does it seem that SKOR North is the only media entity in this town that will call out the Vikings and want them to answer tough questions? Watching the Zimmer day after press conference on Monday was embarrassing. This is his words, not mine, by the way. The softballs the media was tossing out there, Zimmer got out of there in 6 or 7 minutes, and I didn't see this, but apparently when PR asked time for 2 more questions, nobody asked any more questions. Why won't people ask him tough questions that fans want to hear answered? If this was New York or Philadelphia, you think the media just let Zimmer skate on his mistakes without using their allotted time to the fullest? I don't want to put Judd in a spot where he's like criticizing some of his peers and friends.
Yeah.
But in general, like, how do you think Zimmer is being treated at large in this market compared to if he were in, let's say, New York or Philadelphia?
Oh my God, if he was on the East Coast, if he coached the Patriots, the Jets, the Giants, Eagles, I mean, he would be getting grilled. He would be. The 2 timeouts thing would have gotten. I think he got 1 question. It would have gotten about 4. They would push him to the point of purposely seeing if he would snap. That's how that works. Yeah, I mean, I do. So just to compliment some people who I think ask questions. I mean, Courtney Cronin asks questions, so I'm not going to sit here and say, well, she should ask more questions. I've often felt like, and this goes back to my time on the beat as well. Okay, so instead of just, because it's not fair to just be like, well, this is a bunch of soft reporters, and in my day on the beat, we grilled everybody. But I've often felt like in this town, the one thing we failed to do as a media, and Phil, you've seen the same thing. It's not collude. That's too strong. But I feel like we fail to band together to continue the line of questionings. Like I have had people ask a question that I might be thinking of or not, but then I'm like, oh, because the first answer from the coach or player is ordinarily I'm going to try to escape the question. I'll give you an answer, but I'm not going to say much. But the follow-up then, like, that's where you have to continue to press, because that's when you delve down. I don't know that the media in this town necessarily plays off each other as well as they should, which is to say the timeouts thing you could have followed up with. How do you not know that rule? You've been coaching and that's where you sort of gain steam, because ultimately, if Mike gets mad right now, I guess my question is this: who cares? Like, 1, he screwed up, and 2,
he's not going to be here anyway. He's probably not going to be here next year.
So he's going to blow up at you now. Because just to go a little bit behind how the sausage is made, as far as I know, Zimmer is not a source for anybody. Like, the only reason why you would purposely back off would be if your phone, if you got text from Zim saying, here's the deal, I'm going to give you the scoop. But if he gets mad at you, who cares? So he's still mad at you. He's perpetually mad at us. So I think it's unfair to, like, pick on the media directly. but I know that going back to my time, and this continues, I don't think in this market we play off each other in continuing a thread of questioning that fans want answers to probably as well as we should at times.
So you're kind of saying, because I used to be, I covered the Vikings for the other radio station, but I was much more ingrained in the Twins beat for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And this is even more of how the sausage is made. You know, there's always a handful of reporters at minimum, and on a Monday after a Vikings game, oftentimes there's like 15 or 20 people that may want to ask a question if you account for written, if you account for TV people, right? And you're only going to get maybe 10 minutes with the head coach. And so it's not like Judd Zulgad, if he's the beat writer, is going to sit there and fire off like 6 pressing questions in a row.
Correct.
It's kind of like everyone gets 1 or 2 bites at the apple, and the ball has to go around. So you're kind of saying, you know, in any market really, if something needs to be drilled down on, it can't just be that you're asking 5 straight questions. It's got to be you throw the first one out, and then you have to just sort of, the next 4 people to ask questions have to come in with a deeper dive, right?
In this climate, in this market, yes. Now, in Philly, you might have a guy who just bulldogs it. I don't know. But I'm just saying, with how we work here, the best way to get, and plus, if it's one person, the coach shuts down. If it's a group, this is too strong, but if you almost gang up as a group, so now it's 3 people, it's harder. You can't, because are you going to get mad at the whole group and shut down? That becomes tougher. And the problem here, just a prime example, like this to me is Exhibit A of what the person is talking about. When the Giants played the Vikings after the Stephon Diggs AWOL thing for like 2 days, I went to that game because I got sent to the Twins playoff game. And so the next day, I think the Twins played on Saturday. So on Sunday, I went and covered the Vikings Giants game. And Kirk Cousins was at the podium. And Kirk is a dancer. Like, he is up there. He bobs and weaves from questions. And but Kirk also has a patience thing. So you got to just keep after Kirk. And I forget the exact line of questioning, but the press conference just about got done. And I finally said something about Diggs. And I'm like, it'd bug you to have your receiver basically. And he's like, no, I mean, that's up to Stephon, blah, blah, blah. And then I think it was Suhan followed up with a really good question. And so it was going to be a good thread, because when Kirk's patience gets tried, it gets a little bit more intriguing. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's more intriguing. And an unnamed TV person came in with, and Kirk, I mean, this has been a tough stretch, right? Or something like that. And that just ended it. So then we lose the momentum of what people want to hear, which is the truth.
Yeah.
So like that's delving very deep into how this works.
Dude, I remember like when I covered the Twins from like 2009 through 2013. And there's 162 games, and Ron Gardenhire would have to sit out there after all the games, whether they won 13-0, whether they got beat. But there were some losing seasons in there, and some really bad things happening in games, right? Or decisions that didn't make sense or whatever. And so, a couple people would start asking those questions, and then like unnamed TV guy would come in, or camera guy, and be like, "Hey, Gardy, can you talk about the Pirate series coming up here?" Like they'd need like a clip for the preview of the next series. It's like, guy,
right? Yeah. Preview. Josh Bell and the Pirates are going to be coming to Target Field interleague play. Your thoughts?
Anthony Sensi via the SKOR North app says he was listening to Colin Cowherd on Monday. I actually sent this to you guys too, because Cowherd led his show with Kirk Cousins and Vikings on Monday. Mm-hmm. And so Anthony was listening to it too, and says Cowherd essentially defended Zimmer and drove the bus over Kirk Cousins, and then reversed it and drove the bus over the Vikings fan base as well, calling Minnesota sports fans too nice, quote unquote, to demand better from a quarterback. What he missed is that the fans aren't too nice to demand better. Our passive-aggressive nature leads directly to disinterest, apathy, and indifference. See Wolves and Twins. It's not that we're Minnesota nice. It's that we have better things to do until the status quo changes. Do you think Minnesota sports fans, and this is a self-reflection too on, I would say, fans and talking heads like us, are we all too nice? I mean, we tend to sort of position ourselves as, hey, we're raising the bar. We want championships. Let's not be comfortable with 9-win seasons with the Vikings, right? Like that's kind of where we come from on our show. But do you think in general we are too nice and don't demand excellence enough?
I think that's way too simple of attempt to explain it. I sort of agree with what the commenter said there. Number one, on Sunday, the Vikings got booed quite a bit. Like they led at the half and got booed off the field. That's not nice. I don't think we're too nice. I think the commenter nailed it. I think we give up because and I've said this, we are a white collar town. There's a lot of great jobs here. There's a lot of wealthy sports fans. You go to Milwaukee, you go to Chicago, you get your blue collar, surly drinking fans. Different breed. But I mean, this state's also great. So I think the thing is, and I'm going to fall on the sword directly here, and I'm going to blame us in our business. And Phil, we've talked about this a lot. I think what Coward's referring to is not the fan base. I think it's how the media portrays things to the fans. And as long as we have people in this town, and we have acknowledged this before, this dates to Sid. As long as we have people in this town who sports fans grow up listening to, admiring, and taking their word as gospel, who are defending the home team constantly, you're going to have, not the entire thing, that's not fair, but I think we all can agree, you're going to have a large faction of people who are Pollyanna, glass half full, purple Kool-Aid drinking fools. But they're raised like that. And that's what we have a lot of. So I would, what Coward's talking about, I would trace the problem to us, the media.
Yeah, I mean, that's Sid spent decades essentially, and part of that was sourcing, right? If he was going to get information from a Bud Grant or somebody, then why would he?
Friends with Bud, like he grew up with Bud, I mean.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's a really old example because that goes back to the 60s and the 70s. But sometimes I do feel like just Minnesota, we tend to not always feel like we deserve top level. Like we're sort of built to endure pain, right? Whether it's from the weather, we're just, well, that's just the way it is. It's 4 months of grinding out the winter.
Scandinavian tough.
Yep. It's keep your head down.
Yep.
Be polite and be passive aggressive or whatever you want to call it. And instead of maybe demanding excellence from the weather, we will not stand for this 20 below zero
we're
crap.
Gonna move.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a hypocrite because technically I did. But like, I don't know that we always feel like we deserve greatness with our sports teams. I think because like even the narrative around the Vikings, it's always about how can they get to the playoffs? What can Mike Zimmer do to save his job? It's always about the lowest possible bar as opposed to and when we sit on the show and talk about championships, a lot of the clapback we get from a certain section of the Vikings fan base and other teams too is, well, that only one team can win a championship every year. If that's the only thing you guys are going to be satisfied with, then it's like, well, no, it's not that we're only going to be satisfied with championships. It's that we haven't had any among these men's teams in 30 years. And so we'd like to see a more urgent push to win one for the first time since 1991. So I don't know. I don't know that, compared to some of the other markets where they demand excellence, right? A lot of East Coast markets demand excellence. Los Angeles demands excellence. I mean, this is some of the bigger markets, but why can't we demand excellence more here without it being, uncomfortable in some way?
But we're also told by some to defend the teams more than the teams defend themselves. Like the Vikings don't show up for training camp and say, what would be good? Let's just make the playoffs, okay, guys?
Yeah, they're not happy at all with a 3 and 4 start, and yet, but like a lot of people are trying to justify it. Like,
and you play the season to try to win a championship. You don't play the season to be like, hope we can sneak into the playoff. I mean, you didn't sign Cousins to say, I hope in 3 or 4 years we're 3 and 4, just okay, hanging in there. But I do want to say this. This is where I'm proud of the people who watch us and consume us.
Yes.
I think that SKOR North has uncovered a community of people like us. So there's a lot. I think there's a lot of people that bristle at the status quo and bristle at being told it's fine. You don't know. Just have faith. Hang in there. Or with Sid, you geniuses, what do you do? I think there's a lot of people who are in our same boat and are in our group. And I appreciate that and love that.
Yeah, I do too. It's been so much fun, especially the last. I mean, you and I have been doing a show together for almost 8 years now, and I think we started to plant some of these seeds maybe a few years ago on the old 1500 ESPN. But I feel like the last couple of years, this is people are just sort of sick of it. They're sick of mediocrity. People are sick of starting over when it comes to the Timberwolves or the Twins, right? And so if we can carry the flag of high expectations on this show, and sometimes we disagree about what it takes to get. I wish I had the music.
No, I don't know the joy on me.
And Andy S on Twitter comments, and he says, "You realize the Vikings' offensive struggles are mostly on the design of the plays, right? We ran a lot of screens in that game against the Cowboys. Kirk didn't have a great game, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad player forever." So it's funny. It's actually kind of a funny. I did not order the questions in that way, but this is like the exact example of let's just justify this. How much of so my question to you off this is how much of the Vikings' offensive struggles do you think are scheme versus Kirk being conservative versus bad offensive line? While you answer that, old Macadac has to shut a door over here. He's at the in-laws' wonderful setup, and he forgot to shut a door. So, is it scheme, Kirk, or offensive line?
Oh, it's all three, but I love how we're trying to say, well, I mean, let's not blame Kirk. I got tweets just like this with game film from Sunday night of Kirk checking down and saying, you think that Kirk wanted to check down? No, I don't think that he did. Is he incredibly conservative and afraid to make a mistake? Absolutely. But yes, the scheme's not good. Running play action going from 8th in the league to 29th is not Kirk. It's the scheme. The scheme is not good. The play calling is not consistent. The quarterback has been very good until Sunday. And guess what? When the offensive line is not great, the quarterback's not great. And that is on the GM who can't put together an offensive line that's outstanding for a quarterback who needs that. No, it doesn't. But I mean, why do we want to? What is the need to parcel out exactly? Okay, we're defending Kirk. He's part of a 3-4 team. We need to stop doing this. We need to, I'm particularly harsh here, but as I've said for a long time, dump on everybody. Don't. This isn't like you got a favorite kid. Well, I like Johnny. Susie's a little bit of a brat. I don't like her.
Some people, Kirky is the favorite kid. Kirky's the favorite kid.
No, I know,
but I have a favorite nephew. I have 6.
We need to stop with this. Let's parcel the blame. The blame goes everywhere. So, teams talk about this. It's a team game. So why do we need to watch that game and say, well, Kirk didn't want to check down? Yeah. We act like it's okay, Kirk's. Let's say we just absolve Kirk right now. Kirk's absolved. He had a great game on Sunday. It just didn't work for him.
Or he would have totally had a great game if all these other incompetent things around him.
Are the Vikings 5-2?
These boobs that can't do their job.
But are the Vikings now 5-2? Magically, if we say, open sesame, Kirk had a great game, do they have 6 wins now? It doesn't matter. They're 3-4 team.
But I think what people are saying is no, the quarterback piece is in place, and you need to fix these other things. You need to, and by the way, there is a case to be made that Kirk in a different universe with a better offensive-minded coach. I am curious to see that. Yes. But I just don't understand why it always has to be someone or something else's fault. The Vikings lose a game, and we're just going to rush to okay, well the Vikings lost, but it's not his fault. It's this thing over here or that person over there. And then the other reality is he's played 100 games, over 100 games as a starter in the NFL. I think it's 108 games or something. And his teams are below 500 over those 100-plus games over the course of 10 years.
Yep.
And like we said on Purple Daily, I think it was yesterday, 4 key offensive stats. One of them was Kirk Cousins ranks all time in the top 3 in completion percentage, top 6 in passer rating, and in the top 10 in, I want to say, yards per game. And we listed off 8 or 9 quarterbacks that he's like Hall of Fame guys that he's just above, like Steve Young, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. All of those guys combined, those 9 guys, those guys are 450 games over 500. He's below 500. So are you saying that those other quarterbacks that he's got the same stats as are just super lucky that they've had just great play calling was perfect? They had nothing to do with massaging the relationship with an offensive coordinator. That's the other thing. If people want to complain about play calling, he's not a 22-year-old rookie. He's a 33-year-old veteran. If he has a problem with play calling or scheme, why is he not? So the first half of last season, Tom Brady had a problem with Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich and their offensive system. Throwing the ball too far down the field too often, too many long developing out routes. Hey, that's not how I won my first 6 rings. Let's go back to the drawing board here and come up with some way to make it catered more to my needs, right? That's how you manage up with your coach and your coordinator. And Kirk has shown himself to be an I just work here guy. Hey, these are the plays that are called. I don't handle the timeouts. I guess we got to look at the film and see. It's like he never wants to take responsibility himself. And so why is a certain faction of people going out of their way to defend him? That's what I don't really understand.
But that comment also dovetails perfectly into the thing that we have beaten our heads against the wall on this show talking about for 2 years now, which is, did you see the problems on Sunday? The protection was a big problem. You're right. All of you who say the offensive line stunk, it was bad. Guess how it gets good? If Kirk Cousins doesn't make as much. We have talked about this, and I feel like there's always this pushback on that one too. When it comes to Kirk, the Kirk campers, they want to move the goalpost constantly. And they don't want to just say, "Oh, that's a really good point. Oh, I get what you're saying. If he made 15 mil, this team could be awesome." Right? Exactly. That's what we've been saying. But there's always, so instead of like being immediately defensive about Kirk, open your mind up, be free your mind and listen to Kirk can be really good. And if he made $16 million, he could probably win a Super Bowl. Probably. I'm not sure of that, but I think that he would have, because what would he have? The infrastructure in front of him to build an offensive line that could be one of the best. And that's what he needs. He needs to have one of the better offensive lines in the league to maximize who Kirk Cousins is.
And there's also, we can talk about this more at some point, but there is a magical line in the history of the NFL. No team has won a Super Bowl with its quarterback making more than 13% of the salary cap. And that's right around, like in today's NFL, it's right around $25 million or so. And his cap hit's over 40 next year. So again, like, it's a different discussion if he makes less money. And it has nothing to do with like jealousy over how much money he makes. It's all about cap usage and strategy and roster building. So a couple more here. Josh Carlson via the SKOR North app. This is actually a good segue. He says, is it possible that the real reason Cousins didn't restructure his contract was because he couldn't guarantee that the money would be used on offensive line? I mean, Zimmer was champing at the bit to upgrade the defense after last year's disaster. Do you think Spielman would have agreed to use the money from restructuring Cousins' contract to pick up a Joe Thuney or somebody else along the offensive line? Is Zimmer was breathing down his neck to upgrade the defense? I don't know that I give Kirk that much credit. Hey, I will restructure for the good of the team if you get me an offensive lineman. I don't think that was the discussion. But it's an interesting sort of, retrospective question, I guess, to ask.
An alpha personality quarterback, and there certainly are their share around the league, would have said those exact words, though. Like when they came to him, he would have said, "We're upgrading the offensive line." Right, Mike? Right, Rick? Which is a fair conversation and a fair comment. And in fact, it's appropriate. But, it's crystal clear, Phil. As you said, Kirk is an I just work here guy. So he's not thinking about, okay, this team needs to improve. I'd really like a center. I'd really like a guard. I'm going to talk to my employer about that. Kirk is thinking, I broke the bank. It's guaranteed. It's awesome. And and it's clear, it is very clear that he does not have those discussions. In 2021, I want my quarterback involved. Like, I don't want him to make decisions across the board. I don't want him to tell the team exactly what to do. but I want to at least give him a small sliver of control if I trust him. But I don't think Kirk wants that.
Yeah.
Kirk's personality is completely, and this is why everything about Kirk is upstairs. Everything. Kirk is a talented God gave Kirk an athletic skill set of an arm and ability to throw the ball that's damn impressive. I think Kirk's biggest problems are upstairs and with how Kirk is wired, and you don't change that. He's what, 33? You said?
Yeah,
that's not going to change.
You know, I feel like some people also act like he is the glue that's holding everything together, right? That the defense and all this stuff, and if it wasn't for Kirk, imagine how bad things would be. So let me ask you guys this. The last, 4 seasons here. So he is 28, 25, and 1 as Viking starter. Let's just take the last 2 years, for example. So the Vikings are 10 and 13 the last 2 years with Kirk Cousins as the starting quarterback that was after they restructured the deal and gave him some additional years, right? So 10 and 13 with him as quarterback. If you took him out, and let's say you put in Case Keenum for less money, but opens up cap space, not as good of a quarterback, but might open up to go get some other players, and he'd get to work with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, etc. How much worse do you think they would be than 10 and 13 with Case Keenum at less money and more free agency money to go get a Lindsley or a Joe Tooney or somebody else? Do you think it would be that much worse than 10 and 13?
No, they're 10 and 13.
I know.
No, it wouldn't be.
It wouldn't be that much worse. Oh, that's what I'm saying. One more here, non-Vikings one here, Feedback Friday. Chris McDermott, I think that's how you pronounce it, via the SKOR North app. He says, we want a weekly Wolves show like you guys have with Realistic Randy on Purple After Dark and like Judd's Hockey Show. It would be very cool if you guys could do that. So we have been having those conversations here. We are a small staff at SKOR here. So, Mackie and Judd and the extensions of Judd's Hockey Show and then Purple Daily are the main things that we're focused on, and Royce Unchained. So we don't want to bite off more than we can chew, and we're also kind of trying to see if the Wolves are going to be interesting all year or if they're just going to go back to being the same Wolves. But that is on our radar to do something more regular from a Wolves perspective. So we'll see. You guys want to do some obscure sports like badminton and some other weird stuff. So
Lacrosse, maybe. I mean, it's getting big.
Lacrosse Daily. Yeah.
It's taking off.
Lax Daily.
Lax Daily.
Lax Daily.
Lax with Dex. Dex with Lax.
Wow.
I like it.
There it is. So that's your Feedback Friday, and I don't know if you guys can hear in the background.